recording.
Okay, so last time I explained, I gave the idea or the intuition that about the fact that there exists a reconstruction theorem about quasi of algebra, which means it's like for of algebra, but here we replace the assumption of fiber functor by quasi fiber functor. And then we said that the notion of quasi of algebra, coming from the fact to relax fiber functor to quasi fiber functor, lead to an interesting and important result, saying that any integral finite tensor category is of the form representation category of a finite dimensional quasi of algebra. So today, I will explain that in more details. So, in details. So the difference between fiber functor and quasi fiber functor so Fg F, so the functor to the trivial category vec. So the difference is this difference is whether the map G satisfies the monoidal structure axiom or not. Whether the natural isomorphism G fx tensor fy fx tensor y satisfy the monoidal structure axiom or not. Monoidal structure axiom or not. So if it satisfies the modular structure axiom, then it's a fiber functor. Otherwise, we will still write the diagram for modular structure axiom, but there will be a variation, and this variation will be called the associator and will be used to define the notion of quasi bialgebra. So what about this diagram? So you have the diagram of monoidal structure axiom. What is the difference here? So you still have every arrow are the same except one. So I will first write what is the same. So you have like that. You will start from here, get something, or you will start from here and get something else. And the difference will not be about what we will write here. The difference will be what we will put here. So let me recall what is already similar. So here you apply just JXY tensor identity F C. Similarly, here you get fx tensor fy tensor c, and you apply ID fx tensor g y z. Next, here you apply jx tensor y z to get f of x tensor y tensor z. Similarly, here you apply j x y tensor z, and you get f of x tensor y tensor z. Okay, and here, so up to now everything is the same. You apply the associativity constraint under the functor f x y z. So the difference is here. The usual monoidal structure axiom would say you have here the associativity constraint fx, fy, fz, but that will make a fiber functor. But for a quasi-fiber functor, this does not commute, so you have something else. You have something else here. You have something which is defined by this diagram. So you everything are isomorphism here. So you can go from here to here, and this composition is denoted like that. Phi of fx, fy, fz. So this phi is well defined like that, and we have it's a fiber functor if and only this phi is the associativity constraint. But in general, it is not. So you have a notion of quasi-fiber functor, where you still have something to work with. So okay. Okay. So where here, so this where phi fx, fy, fz is defined by above the diagram. Okay, because every arrow are isomorphism. Okay, because every arrow, every morph arrow, all arrows are isomorphism. Isomorphism. So it is defined. Then, so we know by this for the same reason. Phi, then phi is in so H like that, where H is the algebra of endofunctor, of not endofunctor, the algebra of natural transformation from F to itself. It's an invertible. It's invertible as so it's an invertible object, and it's called the associator. Associator. Okay. So as I said, remark, for a fiber functor, we need phi equal A, so associativity constraint. Which is equal to 1 because trivial on the trivial monoidal category VEC. In general, the invertible phi is different from 1. Okay, so phi equal 1 mean fiber functor, but we are quasi-fiber functor. So if phi is different from 1, it's a strictly quasi-fiber functor in some sense. Okay, so I am seeing people are discussing in the WeChat group of previous semester course. Anyway. Anyway, so so what about now? Okay. So as for now, as before, we can still define the algebra homomorphism. So co-multiplication delta in co-unit epsilon. But there is a fundamental difference here for H equal round F. the fundamental difference here is the following. It's about the co-associativity of the co-multiplication. The fact that the co-associator phi equal to 1 imply that the co-multiplication is co-associative. But so if phi equal 1, then delta is co-associative. If the phi is different from 1, then delta may be non-co-associative. So it's not always true. It's not an equivalence. But there exists example where delta is co-associative with phi different from 1. So it's not an equivalence, but in general, it may not be co-associative. So that this does not make a structure of bialgebra. We will see that we'll make something more general called quasi-bialgebra. And we will state the list of axioms it should satisfy. Okay, so some few definition before that. Definition. So let C be a finite tensor category. So the quasi-fiber functor quasi-fiber functor Fg is normalized if we have that identity of fx. So something which is quite natural. And two fiber functor, quasi-fiber functor, sorry. Two quasi-fiber functor Fg1, Fg2. So note that they are the same functor f. What is different is just G. So two such quasi-fiber functor are called twist equivalent. Twist equivalent by twist G inverse composed with G2. Like that. Okay. And so exercise. Show that FG is equivalent to a normalized one. So, in fact, in the book that provided this example, I gave this exercise, but I don't know whether you should show that they are twist equivalent to a normalized one, or just equivalent by some previous categorical definition of equivalence. So I have a doubt about that. Should be twist equivalent or just equivalent. Anyway. In any case, it will be okay for the rest of what I will write. So, okay. So now, assume the proposition so because a quasi-fiber functor is always equivalent or twist equivalent, I'm not sure, to a normalized one. So without loss of generality, we will assume that a quasi-fiber is normalized. Normalized. Okay, and then we have the following proposition, which will provide the axiom of a quasi-bialgebra. So this proposition proves a list of properties when you start from a finite tensor category with a quasi-fiber functor. And this list of properties will be used as axiom for quasi-bialgebra. Okay. So the following hold. So one. Yeah. So ID tensor delta H is equal to phi, so the associator phi delta tensor. So I will not prove that. So I am going fast, in fact, here. I will write much more. I will write the details of the proof from the next chapter. The chapter about the next chapter. We will cover the chapter from the chapter 7, I mean, about module category, and from this chapter we will again cover the proof also. But for this chapter 5 and chapter 6 a bit, I will mention a bit chapter 6. We will not cover the proof. So you have this property, and this property comes from the definition of the co-associator. The second property, like that. Phi delta tensor ID tensor ID phi equal 1 tensor phi ID tensor delta tensor ID. So yeah, it's a bit complicated, but tensor 1. This property comes from the pentagon axiom of the tensor category. Third property, epsilon tensor ID delta H equal ID tensor epsilon of delta H. This property comes from the fact that the quasi-fiber functor is normalized. And last property, ID tensor epsilon tensor ID phi. The last property comes from the triangle axiom and also from the fact that the quasi-fiber functor is normalized. So, as I said, I will not cover the proof, but just rewrite the hint I mentioned. Hint. So 1, definition of phi. 2, pentagon axiom of the tensor category. 3, the fact that the quasi-fiber functor of the finite tensor category C. 3, this comes from the fact that the quasi-fiber functor Fg is normalized. 4 is that plus the triangle axiom. Triangle axiom or triangle property, according to which definition of monoidal category you take. Plus triangle, I don't write, yeah, triangle axiom, triangle axiom of C. Triangle axiom of C, following what we mentioned as the second alternating definition of a monoidal category. Using the triangle axiom, otherwise the first definition of monoidal category we use don't have triangle axiom, but a unit axiom. Okay. So it's okay. We have, as I say, a fusion, not a fusion, a quasi bialgebra will be something with an invertible map phi, epsilon and delta, unit and multiplication, satisfying these 4 properties. So you see, what time is it? You see that the idea is to make the algebraic structure in such a way that we have a reconstruction theorem, in fact. So the way here is you start from category and you find the algebraic structure corresponding to that. But sometimes it will be not so convenient to work at the level of linear algebra, of algebra. It's much more convenient to work at the level of category. So that's why I am going fast to this chapter, on this chapter. So, an associative unital K-algebra H equipped with, now we have three ingredients: co-multiplication, co-unit, and associator. For usual bialgebra, you have only two ingredients: co-multiplication and co-unit. Here you have something new, the co-associator or associator. So equipped with unital algebra homomorphism delta, like that. So co-multiplication, epsilon from H to K co-unit, and an invertible phi in H tensor H satisfying. So the associator satisfying the above for equality. Satisfying the above for equality will be called a quasi-bialgebra. Satisfying above for equalities 1, 2, 3, 4 is called quasi-bialgebra. Quasi-bialgebra. Okay. So you see, it's a bit more complicated than a bialgebra. And as you can expect, in fact, if phi is 1, a quasi-bialgebra is a bialgebra. Remark. A bialgebra is a quasi-bialgebra with phi equal 1. Okay. So it's nice. It's nice that you can, in some sense, discover new algebraic structure in the sense of linear algebra, more or less for free, like that. You start from the categorical notion and you try to translate. It's a kind of translation like that. This is nice. It's quite nice. Okay. So now, so as for the bialgebra, other remark, as for bialgebra, for any quasi-bialgebra H, then rep H is a monoidal category. Category. And in fact, it will be more than a monoidal category. It is a finite ring category. In fact, a finite ring category if the dimension of H is finite. Okay, so maybe it's also a finite ring category without finite dimensional assumption. It's always a ring category without a finite dimensional assumption of H, but as we said in the previous session, in the infinite dimensional setting, we have the infinite dimensional about quick generalization, at least for finite dimensional, it's okay. So now we mentioned the notion of twist for quasi-fiber functor. In fact, two quasi-fiber functors are twisted if they are the same functor f. So you can define an analogous notion for quasi-bialgebra. A twist. What time is it? It's okay. Not yet the pause. So a twist for a quasi-bialgebra H is an invertible G in H tensor H. So here G is not the same as, so it's related, but it's not the G for the quasi-fiber functor. In fact, it will be it will correspond to that, more or less. But here we are at the level of quasi-bialgebra, so there is no notion of a functor or something. It's just G is just an algebraic object, such that epsilon tensor ID of G equal ID tensor epsilon of G equal 1. So using such a twist, you can define a new quasi-bialgebra from H, which will be called H power G. And of course, these two will be called a twist equivalent and will correspond to twist equivalence of quasi-fiber functor at the level of category. So, such a twist permits to define a new quasi-bialgebra denoted H power G with same counit but co-multiplication delta G equal of X, so delta equal G inverse delta X G, and associator phi G equal, so it's a bit complicated, ID tensor G inverse ID tensor delta so now I have a doubt. G inverse. I hope I did not make a mistake in this formula, otherwise you should check in the book. ID J. Wow, J tensor ID. Okay. So this new quasi-bialgebra is called twist equivalent to H by twist G. Twist equivalent. In fact, we need all this notion of twist equivalent, etc., to state the reconstruction theorem. That's why I mentioned that. And remark. So twist equivalent quasi fiber functor correspond to twist equivalent quasi-bialgebra. Bialgebra. Okay, so then we can state the reconstruction theorem for finite tensor category and quasi-fiber functor. So reconstruction theorem. So I will state that after the pause. So pause. We will state that after the pause. Okay. So the reconstruction theorem states as follows here. So the assignment CF maps to F equal and F, so that's the, yeah, and H, so by quasi-bialgebra maps to representation of H and forgetful functor are mutually inverse bijection between. So I still don't know what the meaning of inverse bijection, maybe because it reverses the arrow, or I don't know. Inverse bijection. So between one, so the set of monoidal equivalence. Monoidal equivalence classes of finite ring category. Ring category C over field K with a quasi-fiber functor. F. So by ejection, you have that. So the keyword here is finite ring category and quasi-fiber functor. And on the other end, you have the set of equivalence classes of finite dimensional quasi-bialgebra H over K up to twist equivalence. That's why we define the notion of twist equivalence. So what is important here is finite dimensional bialgebra and up to twist equivalence. Okay, but finite dimensional quasi-bialgebra. Okay. Now, what about Hopf algebra and quasi-Hopf algebra? So now, if we want to go beyond, if we want to talk about what about the case where the tensor category has left dual and right dual, and what kind of structure we get if you start from that and the quasi-fiber functor. So what about the antipode, etc., in order to get a notion of quasi-Hopf algebra? So this is what we will explain now. So okay. So proposition. So if in addition, the finite tensor category has left dual, and so is a tensor category. No, not so. Sorry. For example, this symbol mean for example a tensor category. If C has left dual tensor category, so a quasi-fiber functor J Fg if it exists is unique up to a twist equivalence. Is unique up to isomorphism and twisting, which means so twisting changing G. So as I said, two quasi-fiber functor f, G1, f, G2 are twist equivalent by definition, but what about if you don't have the same functor f, you have f1, G1, f2, G2? Then this proposition said that if the tensor category has left dual, then it is still equivalent. Assuming also, you need to assume also that the tensor category is finite, because in the infinite setting, it's not true. So above proposition is false for infinite setting. So the counterexample is the following. So take the infinite tensor category of representation of the group SL2C. So it's a tensor category. Take V be a two-dimensional representation. Then this remark will state that you can always find a fiber functor providing so saying that for all integer you have a fiber functor such that the dimension of the application of this fiber functor to V is n. So which means that is the yeah. So you have something two-dimensional, you apply a some fiber functor and you get something n-dimensional. Take V to be the two-dimensional representation, then for all integer n greater than or equal to 2, there exists a fiber functor on the category C with dimension over C of Fv equal n. So in particular, it's non-unique. It's not unique up to changing G. Because here, the property is not about G. So you can change G, this will not change the fact that the dimension is n. So that cannot be unique here. So now, okay. So now, what about what I said? What about the antipode? So what about the antipode? Now, what about antipode? So for ring category with left dual, we were able to define a notion of antipode. When you have a fiber functor. So now what about when you just have a quasi-fiber functor? What about antipode? So assume that a finite ring category with a quasi-fiber functor Fg has left duals. So you assume that. So I doubt here about this because here C should be assumed to be a finite tensor category. It's a finite ring category. Okay. So C is finite ring category. So let me check. Yeah, C is a finite ring category. Finite ring category, as in the reconstruction theorem. It's a finite ring category. So if it has left dual, so if I remember properly, you don't necessarily have right dual. This is true if for a finite tensor. No, I don't remember. What is this result? Saying that if you have something finite, if you have something left dual, you also have right dual. So my problem here is that if you assume C to be finite ring category, the presence of left dual don't imply the existence of right dual. A priori not, but I don't remember. I have another statement in mind related to that. I don't remember. Anyway, I will check my own later. So what about antipode? So you assume you are in a finite ring category with left dual and a quasi-fiber functor, and then we will they will have two. So that will be a bit tricky. So we will use two-way. We will have two-way. So then, on one hand, so the first way, on one hand, so let me write on one hand for the first way, and then we will see another way. So assuming the existence of a left dual, you can make, so you have left dual, and then you take the dual in VEC. So this provides another quasi-fiber functor. Which is isomorphic to F by previous proposition. This proposition set in the finite, for a finite ring category, any two tensor functor, quasi-fiber functor are isomorphic, are equivalent. So so they are isomorphic, both are isomorphic, so you can't take an isomorphism. So let I don't remember how to pronounce this letter. Xi, maybe, I don't remember. So you take the natural transformation, natural isomorphism, defined like that. CV V2 FV, sorry, star. So you have, as I said, you have an isomorphism, and you take one isomorphism like that. So such an isomorphism, natural isomorphism. Okay. Such natural isomorphism. Okay. So we know that such natural isomorphism exists. So on one hand, you have that. So on the other hand, we will use the evaluation map and co-evaluation map. So we will use the fact that f of v star is a left dual of f of v. And then we will use the evaluation and co-evaluation map so on the other hand, f of v star is a left dual of f of v. And the evaluation map and co-evaluation map so f defining the left dual, f of v in K. So this map is in, so this is what? In C f v star tensor f of v K. And the other map, so this one is what? This one is evaluation map. And the co-evaluation map is like that. Tensor f of v star. And this is in so I write this set, the home space, because we will just, after that, apply the natural adjunction isomorphism to get some new morphism. Like that. So you have these two evaluation map and co-evaluation map. So you can apply the natural adjunction isomorphism, which by natural adjunction isomorphism. So we applied that several times. Provide element in so you will apply the natural adjunction isomorphism. So we will move that here, and we will move that here. So provide element alpha like that in C V F from VF to VF star star and beta in C VF star star VF FV, sorry, FV. Okay, so so now you see you have the following diagram. So we already have a map from FV to FV star. So you have from so you have from FV to FV star star. So we have this map, this morphism, psi V. But we also made with evaluation coevaluation map alpha hat V. And from the bottom to top, we have beta V hat. So we have this diagram. So the CV come from the isomorphism of quasi-fiber functor, and the other two map come from left dual and evaluation coevaluation map and natural adjunction isomorphism. Okay. So then so that provide additional structure on the quasi-bialgebra. So the existence of this left dual provide additional structure. So the quasi-bialgebra H has the following additional structure. So one. So from alpha hat, beta hat, we will make two natural transformation alpha beta. So element alpha beta in H. So recall that H is the set of natural transformation given by the following. So in fact, this is easy. You want something from H here. You want something from that to that. So you just start from that, you do that, and this, or you that and that. So this is exactly how we will define alpha and beta. So alpha V will be Xi V inverse composed with alpha v hat, beta v will be beta v hat composed with c v. Okay, so as I said, you can make, yeah. So should I write that or not? So let me check. So we will make another diagram where we will also put alpha and beta. So f of v. We will repeat f of v 3 times. So here you have alpha v. Here you have beta v. Here you have the map cv to fv star star. Here you have what we said before, and here also, not the other way, sorry. Beta hat v. And so everything commute. So you can see that this is a way to define alpha v and beta v. Anyway, so here's a definition. Okay, so we have these two elements satisfying, defined like that, and you have an antipode, S from H to H, defined as S A of f of v equal to psi in v inverse composed with A f of v star composed with psi of v. Okay, so it's a unital algebra anti-homomorphism. So it's a unital algebra anti-homomorphism. Homomorphism such that so the proposition so the construction make this this antipode with the following property, connecting S and the co-multiplication. So such that if the co-multiplication decomposed like that of A, so AI1 tensor AI2 with A in H, then the sum, so this is over A of S AI1 alpha, here we use alpha, 2i is equal to epsilon A alpha, the sum over AI1 beta S AI2 2 is equal to epsilon A beta. So this 2 equality will be used as the definition of quasi-Hopf algebra. This is the first equality, and we will have another equality about the associator, and that will be used to define the quasi-Hopf algebra. Quasi-Hopf algebra will be a quasi-bialgebra satisfying these two properties. So let us write associator like that. Sum over I phi I1 plus phi, so you just decompose phi I2 plus phi I3 phi I so each one are in so this one is in H, this one is in H, this one is in H, so that is in H times some H times H. The associator inverse to be sum over I. So we will use this notation phi I1 overline like that. So you take this notation for the decomposition of the inverse of this associator. This is just a notation I3 like that. So we will need this notation to state the property. Then sum of phi I1 beta S of phi I2 alpha phi I3 equal 1. And the sum over I of S phi I1 alpha. So hat. The second is with the overline. Alpha phi I2 overline beta S of phi I3 overline equal 1 also. And that will be the second property used to define quasi-Hopf algebra. Okay. The proof of that for finite ring category follow the proof follow from the definition of left dual. Okay. So now we can define an antipode so this antipode S here was defined for the quasi-bialgebra end of F, and we have all this property, but now we can define antipode for a general quasi-bialgebra, not just and of F, in general, definition, so an antipode on a quasi-bialgebra H, in general, is a triple S alpha beta. So now for antipode, you don't, it's not only S, but you have three elements. So where S from H to H, it's a unital anti-homomorphism and alpha beta satisfying so alpha beta in H, alpha beta in H, if I'm not mistaken. Alpha beta in H. So alpha beta in H satisfying this property and this property. Okay. And finally, the notion of quasi-Hopf algebra. So quasi-Hopf algebra is a quasi-bialgebra H delta epsilon phi with an antipode S alpha beta, which is bijective. So bijective here, I have a doubt. Should S alpha and beta be bijection or only S? I guess I guess alpha beta are already isomorphism. Anyway, I have to check. Okay, so quasi-Hopf algebra. Okay. And so as you can expect, so Hopf algebra is a quasi-bialgebra, a quasi-Hopf algebra with phi equal 1 and alpha equal beta equal 1. So it's not the same one. Also, as before, so let H be a quasi-Hopf algebra, then the category of representation of H is a tensor category. Be a quasi-Hopf algebra, then rep of H is a tensor category. Yeah, so this is what I said. Finite ring category of left dual is tensor category. So I have a doubt somewhere. But... So as a finite ring category. So as above. For finite ring category with left duals is tensor category. Yeah, so this is what I said. That's why I am not very comfortable with that. See here, it's a finite ring category with left dual, so it's tensor category. In fact, it's not. So that here it's not. For example, it's just then it's a tensor category. Anyway, I have to revise what this means. Anyway, so you have this, you can reformulate this categorical statement in terms of algebra, and I will finish with that today. A finite dimensional quasi bi-algebra with antipode S is a quasi Hopf algebra. Now, well, S is automatically invertible. Okay. So we will state the reconstruction theorem next session. So next session we will finish to state. So we'll state the reconstruction theorem for quasi-Hopf algebra and finite tensor category with quasi-fiber functor. We will re-mention why, from chapter 6, why we were interested in quasi-Hopf algebra, because any finite tensor category with is integral if only if it is a representation category of quasi-Hopf algebra, and state a reconstruction theorem without quasi-fiber functor, and then we will start the new chapter about module category, in which we will go slowly, in the sense that then we will cover the proof. So on chapter 7, module category, we will cover all the proof, or most of the proof. Okay, so that's all for today. See you later.